In this episode of Women of the Movement, we feature Xernona Clayton. As an early confidant of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Xernona was present in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference offices from the very beginning.
When did you get involved in the in the civil rights movement? I said, the day when I found out I was black in America. That was it. But I had an incident, and I was sheltered in my hometown of Muskogee, Oklahoma, when we had the colored and the white fountains. And my mother and father never really did teach us like, white folks were bad. They just said that you're going to be limited and restricted by your mobility, but don't ever let anything restrict your ability. So get as much as you can, as long as you can, but never sit on your can. Well, I don't think he said that, I added that part. But when I was a student in college, there were 6 of us, 3 girls and boys, and we'd been out on a romantic evening, and we were siphoning off the meeting with stopping at a hamburger place. I won't eat a Crystal hamburger today if you gave me a dozen. I won't do it. It was a Crystal hamburger place, and we all had money, and we just wanted to top off the evening with a hamburger. Walked into the place and asked for a hamburger. And that man had a butcher knife this long, it seems. And he said, if you niggers don't get out of here, you know you don't belong in here. You don't get out of here, I'm going to cut all your heads off. Well, that's very terrifying for a student, because I was young at the time. Then we realized, white people were serious about cutting your head off or doing something because you're black. That's something you don't ever forget. I don't care what white people say about, let's leave it, put it in the past. You're not going to ever forget that. You don't belong here. You know you don't belong here. And that just, stayed in the craw of me for a long time. And so when my first opportunity to do something about it, about my plight, it was just easy. So I think if you have a blistering experience, it's easy to take the next step. And I think for us, I can speak for us, we got connected because of Martin Luther King. And he brought us together, and then our lives took off. But I was involved long before I came to Atlanta. But your question about how we got connected, that's what connected us. We had that common thread of connection, but it was easy to do what we ended up having to do, because you remember that as long as you're black in America, you're going to have problems, and you need to help solve them, and you put your energy to it. And of course, you know the history, and we can talk about that as we go along and evolve into what we specifically did. But that's how I got involved. It was easy. Okay. Rita said that the women in SLC decided. Do you mind if I tell you? Want to tell it?
No,
okay, I'll tell it. She often tells it, but I'll tell it. She said the people decided. They got together, the women did, and decided they didn't like me. And because I came in doing something. Well, the first thing I thought, I knew Dr. King in Los Angeles, in Chicago, in New York, when he was traveling with security officers all around, limousines, he was being chauffeured around, suites were palatial, and I thought of him as a big shot, and thought that his lifestyle matched it. So when I came to SLC and saw the operation, the physical setting, I was appalled. I said, everybody comes to see Dr. King and they got this paltry looking environment. So I decided I was going to do something. Now I'm going to blame the president now because I did something that he hasn't followed through on. I'll criticize him in just a minute. But here were important people coming to see Dr. King, and our conference room was putrid. And I said, shoot, let's fix it up. So I decided to get a big, beautiful conference table, and we put curtains up to the windows, and I grabbed all the girls and said, listen, let's get something. You were there. let's make this room look nice so when people come here, they'll see Dr. King in a proper setting. And she finally said that they didn't like me when I first came, but I ended up making them like me. I put them all to work. I wasn't interested in credits for myself. I wasn't going to get no paycheck, wasn't big enough to share anyway, but you weren't there for money. I wanted to make the place nice. And we made it beautiful. And I even had a picture of Dr. King. He didn't like to take pictures, but I made him take a photo, nice photo that you see all along now. He was standing there at this table. This is the picture. We put it on the wall behind the chair where he sat, and made it a beautiful place. And then I went through the building and got Rita's office all fancied up, and Dr. Boone and all the people. We prettied up the place. And we're working and scrubbing and all that. So they forgot they didn't like me. I worked those girls to death, and they forgot that they didn't like me. They ended up liking me because the environment was better. But I want to say this about the men. People think we were just relegated to just being subservient to men. That's not the truth. The signs of the times were everybody men all over. It wasn't any particular group. It's just that women were not respected in that time. But the men with whom we worked respected us. So we grew up with respect. And when we got ready to have a march, although he didn't want us to do the marching, we made it possible for the marches to take place. So you can't just jump up and do like some people do now. You just can't get in the streets. You got to have a plan, and that's one thing I like about it. The children today, my criticism of the young people who are protesting today is that they're just marching in the streets.
That's right.
Dr. King never went to the streets without a plan.
That's right.
We planned the marches. We had a plan and a goal.
That's right.
And an objective. So there was a method to the marching. But we helped to make that possible. You got to get permission to do it. You got to get organized to do it. And we did the organizing for them to do the marching in the streets. Our role was important, and they appreciated it. So we didn't feel subjugated by the men with whom we worked. And Dr. King praised us all the time. He felt that we were doing great work. But racism has done great harm to our whole society.
Yes.
We didn't make a difference between who was dark and light and that kind of thing, and texture of the hair. None of that was an issue for us. We were busy, engaged in our work. We had a cause and a plan and a mission and a dedication. But once we got to working for the Civil Rights Act, we were trying to make women equal. Then white women joined the group to try to get equal rights for white women. And they did very well. We are still struggling for our place. And so what happens is the competition got more fierce and more deliberate. This is my interpretation. I haven't seen this written in the place. This is my feeling. That then, so the black person who did get the good job, they said, well, she got it because she's fair-skinned. She got it because she's got good hair. She got it because so fiercely, competitively, we engage in a new world.
Wow.
But we really were fighting the system because white women were doing much better by the women's rights fight. They did much better than we did as black people who were women who were trying to get equality. And we're not there yet even. We still, have that. But that's really not, when I think about it, it's not really a problem. I think sometimes we as women can have jealousies because they started back in college with your boyfriends. You get jealous because she got him and you didn't. That would raise competition. But I want to criticize my boss here because they said to me, they took my table when they moved into this new building that Denise helped you all get. And they said, guess what, we are fixing up, and Rita's husband told me, guess what, we took your table and we polished it all up, because now we're talking about, when I come here, 62 or 3, whenever I came in. From those years, they fixed up my table, polished it all up and made it new. We're going to put it in the new building. We're going to replicate Dr. King's office.
That's right.
And this bright, smart, wonderful man. They built the building, and guess what? They didn't build nothing. The doors are not wide enough to get the table in. Now, how smart are these men that so my table is still in the basement somewhere. I don't know. But I often tell the story about what Rita said about me, but I was a strong person. I didn't care. I wasn't coming to Atlanta to join the movement to get liked by the girls.
That's right. That's right.
That's not what I came here for, so it didn't matter to me. And then when she told me how quickly they joined my movement, I was okay. And to this day, and I want to tell you, in those offices, which to me were, limited environment, I would say, but out of that was the commitment was there. Today, Rita, 40 years later, or 50 years later, is what? You're not listening, Rita. I'm talking about you. Okay. Rita, who sat in a dingy office, is now making a magnanimous move to get women recognized in the right places. Women's rights is her issue. So in those dingy offices grew an expanded version of the commitment to do better. And like you said, Jackie, to make the next generation better. That's what Rita is doing, and we could point to a lot of the other women who did that. We were an integral part, and we were in partnership with the men. So people think just because you marched, that's all that was necessary. That's not all it was. The commitment made the difference to our progress. I claim as much right to participate in the rights and the laws that we changed. I feel just as much a part of it as my good friend Bernard Arquette, who's done a lot. But he was a man who was on the firing line, and you saw his picture. You saw Andrew Young's picture. I mean, you saw their pictures. We weren't marching, but we were back home so that when they got through marching, they had some place to come to for comfort and relief. And I tell them for thinking, because we gave them thoughts too. Right. So they used our brain power to go out and do what they did. So, but I think racism just did so much harm to our society in so many ways that it's hard to segue into from one to the other, segment one against the other. But I think that still exists, but it's not a bad thing. I don't think jealous is worse. You got to be strong. And if you just rely on what people think of you, you'll never get yourself time to think about what you think of yourself. So spend the time to think about yourself, your value, your worth. And that's what I think is more important.
Thank you. Miss Kate Lafayette, could you